Hi there, welcome. This is the Kelly's Astrology podcast, where you can find insight, guidance, and understanding through astrology. I'm Kelly, and I'll be your host. Hey there, and welcome to this week's show. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking all about the new moon in Capricorn, which happens to be occurring in the middle of 3 especially busy days in January. So the new moon in Capricorn is going to arrive on Sunday, January 18. The new moon will be at 28 degrees of Capricorn. And there are quite a few other planets who lend their energy and light into this lunation, into this new moon. So that's what I want to get into in today's show. Okay, so before we dive in to all of those new moon insights, I wanted to let you know that this is your last chance to sign up for my Palm Springs Year Ahead Planning Retreat. My annual Palm Springs retreat is happening January 23 to 25. So if you would like to join me for 3 magical days in person in Palm Springs, run, don't walk over to kellysastrology.com. Go to the calendar page where you can find all the details, including how to register. We'll include the direct link for the Palm Springs retreat in the show notes below. I hope to see you in person next weekend. Okay, so back to the new moon in Capricorn. So the new moon is happening at 28 degrees of Capricorn. So it's kind of late in the sign of Capricorn, near the end of Capricorn, basically. And the ruler of this new moon in Capricorn, of course, is Saturn. And Saturn itself is also near the end of its long, kind of dreamy journey through Pisces. So even though this is a new moon happening on Sunday the 18th, it does have some energy about endings and about clearing out the old. So with that sort of said, if there is an unfinished dream in your heart that you have been chasing for a couple of years, this new moon might be your last chance to dive in and give it a more intentional nudge. With the new moon ruler Saturn being right at the tail end of its 3-year journey through Pisces, you might be focused on dealing with unfinished business, or you might realize that you are actually ready to let old dreams go. Maybe you're letting some old fears go. Maybe you have found your way around or through a barrier or an obstacle that has slowed you down or has kind of held you back over the past 3 years. Remember that it was in early 2023, March of 2023, that Saturn first came into Pisces. And so this new moon, which is happening at the end of Saturn's journey in Pisces, which is at the end of a sign ruled by Saturn, is kind of tied in to that longer Saturn transit. So this new moon happening on January 18 is letting us know that the next 2 weeks, starting January 18, have this mix of letting go of the old so that we can explore the new. Now, what's really interesting about this new moon in Capricorn is that in the hours before the new moon itself, the moon is going to bump into Mercury and Mars. Now, Mercury and Mars themselves are actually holding their own decisive meeting, and that is happening on the same day as the new moon, the 18th, with Mercury and Mars coming to a conjunction at 26 Capricorn. Now, why is that important? It's mostly important because as the moon arrives at the new moon, she is just coming off the back of this meeting with Mercury and Mars. Now, Mercury and Mars is a very decisive combination. This is a Mercury-Mars combination or conjunction that is happening in a very dry sign in Capricorn. So Mercury-Mars in Capricorn feels like making very matter-of-fact decisions. We're looking at the data. We have got this sort of unemotional, very grounded approach to things. And that may help you find your way through things that have been otherwise quite emotional or entangled. So with this moon meeting Mercury and Mars right before the new moon, it might be that in private or with your most trusted confidence and inner circle, you are actually making a series of key and very major decisions. So even though the moon is technically making these aspects to Mercury and Mars before the new moon, it all happens over just a few hours in time. And so the moon is meeting Mercury and Mars technically while she is in her balsamic or dark moon phase. And that is a phase that is about endings and completion. It's about wrapping things up. It's about winding things down. It's about bringing things to an end. And so as the moon meets Mercury and Mars right before the new moon, you might finally understand the necessity of a particular ending that's kind of been in your heart or on your mind for a while. It might be that you are finally daring to speak out loud the decision that you really want to make instead of getting caught up with what's the best decision for others or what people might think about the decision that you want to make. The Moon-Mercury-Mars combo is very much like keeping you just in that space of this is actually what I want. So it may help with a little bit of courage or daring to speak the truth that is kind of hidden inside you. And so that Moon-Mercury-Mars combo might kind of pull together a quality of energy or a series of experiences that help you make the choice that you know you are ready for. So even though these potent Moon-Mercury-Mars aspects technically happen before the new moon, and so it might feel that in the hours leading up to the new moon, you are kind of making some choices or grappling with a decision, it's probably most likely that it's in the hours immediately following the new moon that you're ready to move forward or let others know, let increasingly wider circles of people know about the bold or the really assertive, independent choice that you have made. And I mention that because Mercury and Mars are at 26 Cap, the moon will meet the sun at 28 Cap for the new moon. That's only a 2-degree span, and the moon will move through that part of the zodiac in like 4 to 6 hours. So there's a period of time on Sunday the 18th, might be the morning of the 19th, depending on where you are, but for most of us, it's going to be later in the day on the 18th, that you're just going to kind of power through the task list or the to-do list, but not just with everyday things, with more substantive decisions that have maybe been weighing on you. So that's part of what the moon is doing that is kind of feeding in to this new moon. Now, if we come back to the new moon itself, the new moon is at 28 Cap, and the tightest kind of applying aspect that the new moon makes is this sextile to Neptune, which is at 29 Pisces. So new moon 28 Cap, Neptune at 29 Pisces. And so this touch from Neptune in Pisces to the lunation, to the sun-moon combination, it can add a few possible energies into the new moon mix. So there's a few kind of faces of Neptune that I want to bring forward here because I think they get into the mix of this lunation as well. So first up, of course, Neptune can arouse your dreams and your imagination. So given that the new moon is ruled by Saturn, and that is Saturn is a planet that's linked to time, you might find that when Neptune comes in, there's a longing for new structure and rhythms, like you want to build a new relationship or a new flow to time and to your calendar. So this may show up that you are looking at things that you do regularly throughout the week, month, or year, and you're reevaluating what you want to let go of and what new things you might want to bring in. You might want a different rhythm and flow for the year. You might want your time to unfold in a different kind of spiral. So with Neptune sextile the new moon in a sign ruled by Saturn, this idea of dreaming up a new schedule or a new structure for yourself is possible. Now, on a totally different side of Neptune, when we look at Neptune from a physical or a health perspective, Neptune activates a chromatic or lethargic quality. Essentially, Neptune is a planet that kind of induces sleepiness or tiredness. And so if you get hit with this side of Neptune, you're probably going to feel really sleepy, really tired, maybe really exhausted, really spent, really empty. You might find that you are lacking in that drive or motivation, that the inner fire has kind of gone out. And so if that's the case, I would really encourage you to let your soul rest, let your body find ease. So for some of us, the Neptune influence on this new moon is going to manifest as this quite strong sort of tiredness, exhaustion, and need for deep restorative rest and restful practices. So that's two different points of Neptune so far. If we think about another way the sextile from Neptune on the new moon might come in. So to this, we want to consider, okay, the new moon is in a cardinal sign. These are our signs of initiation. So cardinal signs, which include Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, these are signs of the equinox and solstices, and they tend to act as prompts or triggers in the natural cycle of the year to prompt the turning of the seasons. So cardinal signs are about initiation, about moving into new patterns, about going forward. And so this new moon does have some of that let's go forward into something new vibe, but first we have to do the sextile with Neptune. And so any energy from this new moon that does want to take you forward and help you initiate into the new, it may be slow to emerge. So it may not happen on the day of the new moon. It might happen over the week following. And it also might be a clue that to get to the newness and the place of initiation, first you must spend time in creative or spiritual spaces, communing with the muses to find or to confirm your inspiration. So that's what's really unique about this new moon in Capricorn plus Neptune mix, is that we may have some very practical, tangible, really grounded long-term goals we're trying to tune into with the new moon in Capricorn, but we have to bring in a bit of the mystical to help us get there. And that's what Neptune is offering. Maybe an invitation to a meditation or a reflective writing or meditative practice. Maybe it is about pulling cards or pulling in other divinatory aids or tools so that you can make sure you've got the muses showing up and not just the kind of logical, practical part of you. We want to bring a bit of magic in before we rush in to achieving, to make sure that what we are trying to achieve is going to keep us in touch with perhaps inspiration or even a sense of meaning. The final point I want to say about Neptune's involvement on this new moon in Capricorn is that just like Saturn, Neptune is at the tail end of a long journey. Neptune is just days away from ending its 14-year transit through Pisces. And that can kind of reiterate or reinforce the themes that we get from Saturn's rulership of the new moon. So Saturn's important because it rules the new moon. It does also aspect the new moon, which just reinforces things. Neptune's important because it aspects the new moon. And both of these planets are at the end of a long journey. And so you might literally feel as if you too are at the end of a long journey. What I think Neptune specifically brings in with making the sextile to the new moon from 29 Pisces, the very last degree of the zodiac, is the need to kind of release old dreams before you can immerse yourself into something new. When Neptune went into Pisces 14 years ago, back in 2012, the world was different. You were different. Your life was different. And the things that the person you were in 2012 longed for, you have either moved towards those dreams in that time, or maybe you've grown beyond them. But the underlying point here is that whatever the dreams that inspired and uplifted you and drew you forward back in 2012 and 2014 and 2016, as Neptune made its way through Pisces, those dreams don't fit the person you are now or the times that you're currently living in. And so with this idea with Neptune wrapping up its tour through Pisces, it is really about making peace with whether you achieve those old dreams or not, but kind of acknowledging they're the dreams of the old you. And the new you, the person that's living right now, the person that is living in 2026 with the world as it is, with your life as it is, that person, that soul inside you has different dreams and longings and wishes and hopes. And what is going to be most helpful over this next 2 weeks, because it's in this next 2-week lunation cycle that Neptune leaves Pisces and moves into Aries, is for you to maybe do a ritual about letting your old dreams die or letting them go, and then creating space inside you energetically and emotionally to dream up new dreams. So even though it's a new moon in Capricorn, And it looks like one thing. A new moon in Capricorn kind of looks like a very clear, practical, grounded lunation. It actually feels and functions like a bunch of different things because of all these other planetary influences. As I mentioned at the top of the show, the new moon in Capricorn arrives in the middle of 3 days, which brings a flurry of astrological activity. January 18, 19, and 20 is hugely active astrologically with a number of different planetary aspects, configurations, and movements going on. We have some planets that are in the tail end of this wrapping up long-term cycle. We have other planets that are starting new cycles. We have some planets that are ruled by planets ending these cycles. And we have still other planets that are meeting major planets in new places. So the planets are doing a lot in this 3-day period around the new moon. And that means this third week of January feels like crossing a series of thresholds where you're making choices between the old and the new and between the past and the future. I know that January 1 is in the rearview mirror, but as astrologers, we know that you don't need that particular calendar date for a reset. There are some specific dates in the year that apply collectively, and there are some really personal dates that are potent for a reset. One of the collective reset dates that I want you to consider from an energetic perspective is this new moon in Capricorn. A reset is possible as this new moon crosses that threshold between old and new, between Neptune in Pisces, Neptune in Aries. Between that new moon in Capricorn, plus just the general astrology of planets just buzzing and bopping around in that 3-day period, this particular time, this new moon, this third week in January, is a time when a reset is possible. So if you are ready to reach for new dreams, it may be time to let those old dreams die, to give yourself permission to start afresh, not on a calendar date, but on an energetically aligned and active date. So let me know in the comments below what dreams you're letting go of, what new dreams you're wanting to call in. I would love to hear. One of the things I'm going to be doing this year, 2026, is featuring some of my best past webinars. I have such a rich back catalog of teachings that I want to make sure you all have access to. And one webinar that I want to feature now, just before we wrap up today's episode, has to do with Saturn's transits through the houses. So we know that Saturn's about to change signs, and that means Saturn is going to be coming into a new house in your chart and affecting a new area of your life. So in this webinar, which is literally called Saturn Transits Through the 12 Houses, I give you tips and insights and supports for Saturn moving through each of the 12 houses. So if you're wanting to get some support about how to work with the house in your chart that Saturn in Aries might be activating for you, pop over to kellysastrology.com, go to the Browse Webinars page and look for Saturn Transits, and you will find this webinar. This essential teaching will really give you some good foundations and some clear priorities of what to focus on over the next 2.5 years as Saturn goes through Aries. We'll put the direct link to the Saturn Transits Through the 12 Houses webinar in the show notes below. But if you missed that when I delivered that live a couple of years ago, those teachings are timeless and they will be incredibly insightful and inspiring for 2026 and 2027. So check it out if you haven't already. Thanks again for joining me for another episode of the Kelly's Astrology podcast. I wish you an inspiring new moon in Capricorn, and I'll catch you next time.